All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this next episode of From There to Here. Today, I have another good friend of mine. We work together in public schools, and even though we don't work in the public schools together anymore, we still have a lot in common as far as other things we do outside of our school life, which we're going to get into. So he has a lot of different titles and hyphens and stuff. He is a minister. He's a coach. He was an athlete. He was a public school teacher. He works in the collegiate levels right now. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to steal his thunder. But welcome to the broadcast, Dr. Roderick King.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Mr. Larry Temple or Pastor Larry Temple, because you also have different titles in front of your name as well.
I guess that's true. I like to start, and that I say I like to start off like this is something I've done a bunch of times. You are our second guest, but still, I just did this last time, and I think I wanted to make this a continual thing on the show. There's an expression they have called someone's elevator speech. That if you were in an elevator and you had, those 10 seconds to explain to somebody who you were, then whatever you could jam into those about 10 seconds or so, that's called your elevator speech. So could you give us your elevator speech? In other words, if you had to introduce yourself to somebody in a few seconds, what would you say?
If I had to introduce myself in a few seconds, probably would be I don't look like, what I've been through. Behind every dark cloud is a ray of hope. And a lot of times, you will see an individual and you'll see their sunshine, but you don't realize the darkness that they had to walk through in order to get to where they are. So I would encourage you to keep on walking because, hey, at the end of that, behind every dark cloud is a ray of hope. In the midst of every dark path, is a ray of sunshine. So that's what I would tell them. Keep stay in pursuit of the expectation that you have for yourself. Because that expectation, you have to believe and trust that God mandated it and purposed it for your life. So stay in pursuit of it.
And that's interesting because in the show, or just when I talk to people in general, and I've asked them a little elevator speech thing, they always, most of the time, when I've heard it, they talked about themselves, like I do this, I work at that, or whatever. This is probably the first one that I've heard where your elevator speech was actually directed at other people,
Yeah.
and which is kind of the ethos of the show. So that was 100% on target.
Yeah, I tell people one of my favorite words is empowerment, because I think that's the gist of our lives. Our life is one that should empower someone else to be the best that they can be. So just use my life as a tool to empower and encourage somebody else to be the best that they can be.
Now, normally when I hear people who have I'm going to say a mantra or a word or a theme, like empowerment is definitely your theme. A lot of times that theme comes because either they themselves or people they've seen have lived the opposite. And so the person recognizes that and they want to go and push people the other direction. So can you talk to us about the lack of empowerment that you've seen in your life or people's lives, period, that kind of pushes you to want them to go the other way?
I think many times people tend to compare themselves to individuals, whether that's in life, whether that's in academics, whether that's in professions. You tend to compare yourself to other individuals, not understanding that you're so busy competing with, trying to compare yourself with that individual. You don't understand that individual possesses something that can help complete you. So what I had to learn is from empowerment is, sitting back and understanding just because my life journey or someone else's life journey was a certain type of way, I had to learn how to use their experiences, whether it's a past, present experiences. I had to learn how to use those as fuel for my fire. Because of not, I can get caught up looking at what a person is going through or what a person has accomplished and saying, well, I'm not going through that. So, or I could never be like them, and it'll cause me to become stagnant and complacent. And that was the one thing that my mom, I don't care how hard or how rough our life became, she refused to allow us to become stagnant, and she refused to allow us to become complacent. You're talking about a woman who didn't graduate from high school, but all four of her kids have at least a master's degree.
Wow.
She refused. She would not let us. So she empowered us to be the best individual we can, and we learn how to use those real life experiences as the fuel for that empowerment.
When you say empowerment, what are some of the tools, I guess? Well, let me rephrase it. Let's say that there's someone watching you, and they're not necessarily the person who needs empowerment, but they want to help others. They want to be that guiding light or that motivator for somebody else, whether it's just their own kid or they're a teacher or just an adult or whatever. What are some things an empowering person can do for or give to someone to make them in turn feel empowered?
I tell people the best gift that you can give an individual when it comes to you is an authentic you. Be your authentic self. Be the real you, because somebody needs you. You know, they're going to be people who are going to need Rod. There'll be people who need Larry. There'll be people who need, but somebody needs you. So if you're trying to be Rod, that person who needs you will miss out. If you're trying to be Larry, that person who needs you will miss out. So be the authentic, not the fantasy, not the make believe, not the masquerade, because eventually the mask gonna fall off. But be the authentic you, because you can help people through whatever they're going through when they see the genuine. I guess we call it being real, the realness. But I say the genuine sincerity, heartfelt, the wholeness. When they can see you, I think that's something that empowers people.
Well, to amen that, I remember going to a school event that was supposed to fight gangs, and it was school people there, police, different agencies and stuff. And a person got up, like one of the attendees, and he or she said, "I don't have any kind of background with the streets or anything like that. I really want to help these kids, but I don't, my background is totally different from theirs. Would I ever be able to be a help?" And one of the presenters said, who had come out of the gang life, he said, "You definitely can help." He said, "They don't need, nobody needs another person to remind them of what they came from. So they don't need another gang member, streeter. They need someone different who won't give up on them and who will be their real self, and to show that there is a different path than what I've already known." So that's Pastor Monzel Ford, guy here in Daytona. And so that
From
just
there to here,
what you were saying.
From there to here, you can say you may be there, but this is how you can get here. They need that. They need that, because so many times they feel stuck. They feel stuck, like this is my only way of life. This is, you don't understand. And another one of your titles is assistant principal, and you dealt with discipline. So I know you've had those conversations where students have felt like, this is my lot in life. I was born into this. There's no way of me getting out of this. This is how it has to be. And you're trying to, no, it doesn't, because they look at us and they see this, and it's like, you've never done anything in your life. I just don't look like what I've been through. Yeah, I don't look like what I've been through.
100%. Well, how do you? Let's see. Because I want to maximize and bring home the different things you're saying, because you're saying so many powerful things. One, how about the person of any age, adult, child, whatever, who has gotten some flack for being themselves? Like you talked about being the authentic person that you really are. How about the person that's gotten their hand slapped for being themselves? Maybe they don't fit into the mold of people in their neighborhood or whatever. And so maybe that person draws back and said, "Hey, when I really was my real self, people didn't accept that. So I just kind of molded myself to blend in." And I could see a kid doing this, or a 45-year-old man or woman doing this. What do you say to the person who had bad experiences when they were themselves, and now they kind of draw back to just kind of blend into the woodwork? What would you say to that person?
For me, that's kind of a twofold answer, and here's why. And I hope you can really understand what I'm saying here, because I've been thinking about this. That's a question that I've truly been thinking about. What happens is, so many times, first we try to fit into a place that we don't belong in, and what happens is that's why our hand gets fat, because this, like, God, you don't belong here. Like, get out, move, disconnect. Because a lot of times, I've shared this. A lot of times the weight that we need to shed is not the weight on our body, it's the weight that's in our inner circle. You know, we're carrying too much debt or excess weight from people that we call friends, people we call associates, people we call business partners. There's too much, because so you're trying to fit into a mold or fit into a place. You don't belong there. And you have to accept the fact that you're different. You may have came up in a certain environment, but you have to accept the fact that you're different. And there's nothing wrong with that, because somebody needs what you offer. But then here's the other side and the flip side of that. Sometimes it's not that you're in the wrong place. It's that there's people in that space who don't belong there. And I believe that they're there by design. They're there by design to grow you. Hear what I'm saying? They're in that place to strengthen you mentally. They're in that place to strengthen you emotionally. They're in that place to strengthen you spiritually, because you know us, we pray and we ask God for a thing, and we want that thing, and that thing is going to bring about a change. The issue is we don't want to deal with the challenge. So anytime we see something that looks like it's a barrier, there's an obstacle, there's a wall, and it's going to mean that it's something we have to fight for, we tend to say, maybe that's not God. Maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Maybe I'm not supposed to be doing that. No, God. And we always said this, right? Anything worth having is worth fighting for.
Okay.
And so sometimes it's not that you're the person, you know what I'm saying, you're in the right place, but there's the wrong people have tried to take up space in that place. And it's going to require you standing strong and being your authentic self in order to evict them.
Evict. I get that. I like the word and the picture. Evict them from what is really your place.
That part. It's yours. It's yours. Mm-hmm.
How about, and I am reflecting on experiences I've had with kids, with young people, but even with people my own age. There are people that seem like they're afraid to do a new thing or be themselves, whatever, because they're afraid to be by themselves. They're afraid to be the only one. And again, this could be kids or adults. I give the example of an adult who's in their, I don't know, 30s, 40s, and they want to go back to school, or they want to go for the promotion on the job or whatever. But the people around them say, well, why would you even want to do that? Or you should be fine right now, or you want to be like them, or etc. What do you say about the person that has issues being the only one?
That's and you know, in so many aspects of life, that's the variable that many of us face, being the only one. I believe they give a credit to Einstein saying that basically when a ship is at shore, that's not what it was created or designed to do, and that was to be at shore. And so here it is. He didn't say ship; he said a ship. So when a plane, if a plane is always on the ground, that's not what it was designed to do, because that plane will eventually start to rust, decay, and malfunction, because it's never doing what it was designed to do, that plane. And a lot of times that's what happens to us when we're worried about being the only one. Our dreams will begin to rust, our ideas will begin to decay, and before you know it, our future has malfunctioned, because we found ourselves staying grounded when we were created to fly. And you will understand that the bird that flies the highest is the eagle, and the eagle is also the one that flies alone. We attribute it to being one of the greatest. Yeah, it flies alone. So wow. A lot of times we feel like we need people to validate our talent. We need people to validate our ability. You know, many times we want somebody to tell us, "Good job, pat us on the back. You're good. You're gonna." But if you don't believe that, somebody patting you on the back and telling you how good you are and that will only take you so far.
Okay.
That's an innate thing. That's something that has to be on the inside of you. You know, I have this. I believe what the Bible says, and it came to pass. So eventually, you know, if I'm in pursuit of something that I believe God has put in my destiny, the benediction will be, and it came to pass. Whether somebody's with me or I'm all by myself, it's going to come to pass. So we got to learn if we're going to soar, we got to learn how to fly by ourselves.
Boy, that was really big. You said that the bird that flies the highest, the eagle, also for the most part flies alone. Okay. Wow. And I think some people are more afraid of the alone part than the failure part or the money that they were going to miss out on because they didn't go for the promotion or whatever. I remember an assistant principal at a high school told me once that when they first, that they had been a coach at their school when they were a teacher. They coached some sport. And the coaches used to all go out together in the evening, after the game and stuff. Now, the next year, that person was an administrator and had to, supervise the game, but the same coaches were still there and was figuring that she would be able to go out with them just like always. And toward the end of the game, one of the coaches was sent over to tell her that since she was now an assistant principal, she was disinvited from the after game thing. She said this just crushed her because he was like her friends, all this. But that's when she started to learn that as you make some progressions, certain people are going to feel like you are not part of the group. And it wasn't her separating herself. They separated her because she had made a step. So I never forgot that story.
And that's a good, and in essence, as painful as it was then, it was really a good thing because it didn't put you in a compromising situation where you had to now be the one to say, you know what, I'm a step back. You'll be stuck with that because you're the one who told me that you got to step back away from me because it's true. I'm on another level. And as much as we don't want to acknowledge it or we want to act like it won't change, I'm on another level. And I have to, in this position that I'm in, I have to conduct myself as such. So it was fun while it lasted, but we have a responsibility.
That is heavy. I in church we had an example today of if you and I are friends, we don't have a car, we don't have a bike, we're walking everywhere, we're good friends. But as soon as you get a bike, that's a test to me. Am I now going to get an attitude or be jealous? You don't have an airplane, you just have a bike, but you have something more than me. And some people cannot handle being friends when one of us moves forward quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so true.
Well, now you wear several hats because people don't even necessarily know that you are a pastor of a church. But again, we met when you were a teacher and coach at public school. You work in college, the college arena now, and other hats that I don't even know about. But I want to ask you a question. It'll pertain to your ministry life, but all kind of people see this podcast, but they may be religious or not. But I think the question I'm going to ask could help them. How did you know, whether it's becoming a minister or teacher, coach, whatever, how did you know that you were supposed to do any of these things? How did you know you should be a teacher? How did you know you should coach? You can pick any of them or all of them for people who are in the middle about should I do this or that thing. How do you know?
That's a good question, but I think for many is one of the toughest because so many times the clues are all around us, but it's not what we want to do, so we choose to ignore them. Okay. We see the signs, we see the evidence. The evidence is on it, but we choose to ignore them. When it comes to education, I wanted to go into finance. I wanted to go into finance. I just want to learn how to make money. I took this class. So when I first got my scholarship, I said went in as undecided. But I took this class called peer counseling. And this class required us to go across the street to the elementary school and start working with the kids. Immediately, they took a hold to me. Immediately. And I can remember being there. The teacher says to me, because I would, be going through, I would be helping them with the teacher says, would you like to teach a lesson? I would love to teach a lesson. And from there on, it was a done deal. I'm going in education because I had an opportunity to see the impact that I had on those young people's lives. And just for some reason, they gravitated to me. They wanted to talk to me. They wanted me to teach them. They wanted to learn from me. And so many times we say, people say, well, I don't want to be bothered with kids. I don't want to be around kids. And you're trying to say, but you can't understand why you're not being multiplied. You can't understand why you're not advanced. You can't understand why you're not just being blessed, but feeling blessed. Not just because when we think about being blessed, you're like, well, I want to feeling that when you walk into the calling that you have, that God, the assignment or the career that's purpose for you, the feeling that it gives you. You might not make $100,000, $200 million a year, but the feeling that it gives you. When I see students that I taught and they're like, hey, you know, the excitement, and they start telling you how impactful and important you were in their life. So for me, it was having that opportunity to work with young people, and I realized, okay, this is my calling. This is my calling, and I believe that all of us, we have that situation where it just like boom, it just hits us. But we got a choice: either you can accept it or you can ignore it. And too many times we ignore it because it's not what we want to do.
Okay.
You know, it's not what we want to do. You're excellent at it. You know, people like that, they're excellent at it. It's like a person, I'll give you this, it's like a person who can flat out sing.
I was going to
But
use that
they
example
never
myself.
but they never want to, and it's like, do you know where your voice could take you? Well, I don't want to sing. But you say you wanna act or you wanna model. That singing could be what gets you in. That's the gift, that's the talent you have to get you in the door, so you can now do those things. But they don't
Wow.
see that, so they miss it. So even when it came to ministry, it was one of those things where it was like, well, you know, being growing up in church, that's not me. I would never. I would say, like, I'd never be somebody's pastor. No, I couldn't do this. I'm not dealing with these people. Oh no, I'd never be somebody's pastor. And my aunt used to always tell me and tell my mom, you know, he's going to be the next preacher in the family. And it was just like I was trying to do everything in my life to prove her wrong and to prove them wrong, because I want them to know I would not be anybody's preacher. You know, so it's like I was doing everything to prove them wrong. But the one thing I would say this, I knew there was something different, because I don't care how hard I tried to fit in. I look back at it now. People may think that I was that cool guy, but deep down inside, I was still empty. There was still a void. And that's why I tell people a lot of times, when you see people and they look like they're out there, they're having the time of their life, and you like, man, I just want God to save my son. I want God to save my daughter. But they just out there, and they look like the enemy just. So much of that is a masquerade. So much of it, because guess what? I don't want you to know that you're right. That's what we are. I don't want you to know that you're right about me having an emptiness on the inside. I don't want you to be right, so I'll keep on doing what I'm doing. But eventually, that's the love of God. The love of God to keep on tugging and tugging and tugging, and that was it. He kept on tugging until I had no choice but to surrender. You know, so and even then, I tell people like, well, how did you become a pastor? And for me, it was never about being a pastor. It was just about service. All I wanted to do was serve God. All I wanted to do was please the Lord. So whatever I thought that I could do in order to be of some service to the ministry, to whatever ministry in the church, or whether it was at school for all those years doing FC, I just wanted to be of some service. I just wanted to support. I just wanted to help. That was it. And I said, you know, people saw the gift that God placed on the inside of me of service. And, you know, they wanted me to be their pastor. So it's like your gift, where it says your gift will make room for you, but you got to be doing something. If you're not doing anything with that gift, you don't give it an opportunity to make room.
When you gave that example of the singer who doesn't want to sing, as someone who really likes music, that is something that really frustrates me when I see someone who obviously has that talent, and you have to beg them at knife point to make them sing. And there are other areas of life they do that with, but the singing one, that really gets me.
Yeah, it's so much that we have on the inside of us that is like, and I'm still, I would tell you, I'm not a finished. It's so much. I'm still like, there's more. I feel like there is so much more that God wants to do in my life, and so I'm trying to do everything I can not to be in a place of stagnancy or complacency, because I just want God to, you know, be able to lead, guide. And he says, if you delight in me, I'll give you the desires of your heart. And so I know that too. There's some things that I've also asked him for. And so I'm at a place where I just want to please him, because I know that's what he wants to do, is please me. And so
I love that. I'm struck to ask another question too. Even though you're a pastor, but this would apply, I don't know, anybody. I know as a pastor, you deal with marriages and marriage counseling and stuff along those lines. And I had a conversation just this week about what people should look for in mates and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those maybe that had nothing to do directly with what we're talking about, but again, in your line of work, it does. What
Mm-hmm.
would you say to that person who, at the same time, is trying to figure out who they are, and at the same time, they have a desire, to be with someone or to be married, let's say married at some point. Again, whether this person is 21 or 41 or 51 or 61, what are some
Yeah.
general things you would share as far as some wisdom for someone they're trying to figure out who they are, but they also want to have somebody? Can you offer anything along those lines?
Yeah. Just because somebody's a good date doesn't mean they're a good mate. I
Please say
mean,
that again,
yeah,
sir.
yeah. Just because somebody's a good date doesn't mean they're a good mate. You know, if you're marrying for the wrong reasons, you eventually have a cellmate. Whatever, you'll have a cellmate. Yeah,
Wow.
that's what, because you're marrying for the wrong reasons. And I tell, but I think what happens so many times to people, they're looking for that playmate. They're looking for this person who, has all these attributes, has all these qualities, has all these, and now and we're in the age of social media, so we might as well deal with it. You see so many little videos now where people have on all this makeup, and when they take the makeup off, they really don't look like who you expect them to be. When they
Okay.
take off the waist trainer, they're not looking like, and then even men, what I'm saying, they're not the person, who you saw in the pic. Like, this isn't you, this should be a felony. This is fraud. And what happens so many, what happens so many times is we're falling in love, what I'm saying, with the container. And that's what gets us in trouble. We fall in love with the container, but not the content. And people say, well, why would you say, well, I'm doing math. They say, well, why would you say, you want to, and I'm not, and I tell people, I'm not telling you not to have, not to have somebody who you want somebody who not just gonna turn your head, but somebody else to look, because there ain't nobody else looking, you
Yeah.
want somebody else, every now and then turn your head. But I'm not telling, I tell them, I'm not telling you that. But what happens is, in sickness and in health, the reason you need a helpmate and not a playmate is because when you get sick, you need that person that God has ordained for your life, and they're going to remember that covenant. They're going to remember that vow in sickness and in health. They won't run out and leave you. With you, if she gets breast cancer, you won't leave. If he has to have a leg amputee, see, we don't think about those things
Mm.
because we're focused on right now. But for those of us who've been married for some years, we understand it's that companionship, that commitment, that dedication, that love. It's that love for each other that we have. So I tell, just because there's a good mate, a good date doesn't mean there's a good mate. You want you a helpmate and not a playmate. You want you a helpmate. God say, hey, when he took, I'm giving you a helpmate. You want a helpmate, not a playmate. Playmate.
I,
Yeah.
I I love how you broke that down, and I asked the question because since you come from a spiritual background, I want to be able people to be able to see that there is a practical side to spiritual
Mm-hmm.
things, that it's not just getting ready to die and go to heaven or whatever, but it's things that are right to help you in this life. And I wanted to give you a chance to bring that out to us.
And you got eyes. You got, a man that finds a wife finds a good thing. That's the kind, man, come on. You're waiting on her. She's waiting on you.
Yeah.
You find her. You go out and find her. Be that covering. Be that, be with that she needs. And I mean, it's like so many people, like you said, they just sit around here thinking, okay, I'm living this life just to live again. Living to live again. That's for them in heaven. But God said, He wants to bless us here while we're here on earth. He wants to give us the desires of our heart. So it's like, hey, God has somebody out there for you who is gonna. I was reading the Bible, and I believe it was, and he was telling the father. He was telling the father that you were to be a blessing to your children. He was telling the father, you are a blessing. But when we read that scripture about a man that finds a wife finds a good thing, the Bible says, and he obtains favor. So it's like, man, you the blessing, woman, you the favor. You need each
Mm.
other, but you got to make sure you find the right one. You don't be in trouble.
Thank you for that. I I know that you are you don't throw it around a lot, but you have your doctor. You are a Dr. King.
Okay.
Um, why did you pursue? Well, just in general, could you talk to us about your thoughts about the value of education? Period. Whether it's high school diploma, master's, doctor's, bachelor's, whatever. What are your feelings on the importance of getting more education, more knowledge?
That's an awesome question because for me, I think for me and maybe even my siblings, education wasn't just about getting an education. It was about a way out. It was about a way out of poverty. That was what our mom instilled in us. Life is not supposed to be like this. You can have a better life than this. But I need you to get your education. And she pushed it. She pushed us hard when it came to education. And I mean, and once that took place, it was more so like I was good with my bachelor's degree. And then I had a friend of mine, Corey Moore. He said, "Hey man, I just signed up to go and get my master's degree." I told him that you coming with me. I was like, "What?" you know. So they gave the people my name and everything, and I could only dodge it for so long. So before I knew it, I had to sign up to get my master's degree. And then I got it, my master's degree, and I was like, okay, this is a good accomplishment. I got my master's degree. This is good. My another friend of mine, Chester Wilson, Dr. Chester Wilson, he encouraged me. Hey, I need you to go with me up here to take me my car mess. Can you take me to this informational? And before I know it, I'm signing my name on the dotted line
Wow.
to get my doctoral degree. And I always tell people I didn't get my doctoral degree to be some great individual. I got my doctoral degree because I wanted my nieces, my kids, my nieces and my nephews to understand that there is nothing that's unobtainable when you have God. There's nothing. I don't care where you come from. There's nothing that you can't attain. Nobody would have ever thought in a million years that Rod King would be a doctor,
Oh,
but I am.
yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that I would be a doctor, but I am. So I need them to know: never let somebody tell you what you can't do. Never let somebody tell you what you can accomplish. Don't use your history, your past, your best. Don't use any of that as an excuse because it's not an excuse. Because there's so much opportunity and so much room for you to grow. So my doctoral degree was purposeful in the fact that I did it for my children and I did it for my nieces and my nephews and other young people because I wanted them to know no matter where you come from, no matter what your background is, you
Yeah.
can be who it is that you want to be.
It's amazing. I got it. I got that. That was crystal clear. I couldn't add
Mm-hmm.
anything to that. One last thing. I guess I have about 4 minutes to say still as we time out. You have a coaching background in
Yeah.
sports. When you play sports, you were a collegiate
Mm-hmm.
athlete as you've coached. Something that bothers me, and man, I don't know how you feel. I will hear kids in the ninth grade or 10th grade who aren't even top level high school athletes. And some of them have been talked to by their family, making them think that they and their sports future is the hope of the family. Like I've heard
Uh-huh.
kids who are 14 say, I got to make it for my family, or sports is our way out. And this is a kid who's not even a top level talent to expect that. But they bought into it because they've been told this by their parents and by the folks around them. Could you talk about the balance between the good parts of sports, which are very good as far as at the collegiate or high school and younger level, the good part, but balanced with reasonable expectations, if I'm saying it right, or
Yeah,
how you
almost
understand what I
definitely.
mean?
Most definitely. And I would tell you the first thing that I think sports brings to the table, and you're starting to see it in some aspects, not from all coaches, but from some aspects, is the discipline.
Mm.
Your coach, whether it's your coach, your cheer coach, your band director, whoever, they were like a parent. And if they discipline you, if they said something, that stood. And so it was like you couldn't run, you couldn't do something, you couldn't do something at home and then think you weren't going to have to deal with it with your coach. Because what we have to understand is, and this is as parents, our kids look up to our coaches. You may not be able to read your Bible and see where it says it takes a village to raise a child, but it does. And your child, there's influences outside of your influence that your child has. And one of the biggest influences that your child is going to have is that coach. So that coach, it's not just a mandate on that parent, but it's a mandate on that coach to also make sure They're teaching them discipline. They're teaching them responsibility. They're teaching them commitment. They're teaching them dedication. They're teaching them the importance of their academics. All of that, it's important. So that coach is a father figure. That coach is a mother figure. That coach, people don't understand the impact of a coach. And so even as coaches, we have to be careful not to sell somebody a fake dream. You have to be honest and you have to be open with them in your communication because, and trying to segue into the question because of time, so many times our young people think I'm going to the NFL. I'm going to the, what you want to do with it? I'm gonna be a NFL football player. But your grades have not allowed you to be eligible to play football since you've been here. How is that going to happen? So nobody is actually taking that time to explain to that child, look, you played Pop Warner all these years with poor grades, but it takes grades to get into a college. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is so many times these students miss it because whether it's parents, whether it's coaches, nobody's telling them the truth. And I say that because I had a coach growing up in high school who told me the truth. Rod, of you're a great player, but if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're going to be home. You're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything with your life. And so many times that's what we have to tell our kids the truth. It's not a participation trophy. Everybody doesn't win. You win some, you lose some. When you lose, you don't go home and cry about it. You figure out what you need to do in order to get better. There's so many life lessons that a coach is supposed to offer to a young man or a young woman. And I think so many areas we're missing that.
Because I keep bringing up your multi-hyphened self with education, athletics, really, business, ministry, things like that. So it kind of gives me a wide range of things to want to ask you about. Now, where I know this, but I want the people to hear. Where are you from?
I'm from Palaca, Florida.
Okay. Now, for those who don't know, because I don't know how far this will be heard. Palaca's kind of small town. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. What do you say to the person? Because empowerment is literally the name of your church, and it's a phrase that just comes up in your talking all the time. I kind of want to bring that aspect out of your experience. For the person who is from small town, or they're not from money, or to be more direct, some people are ashamed of their background, like maybe what their parents did, or the family is the family in the town or in the neighborhood with the bad reputation, et cetera, et cetera. What do you say to the person whose past or even present circumstances seem to put a label on them, like they're from the part of town where nobody does anything, or the bad family, or the poor family, et cetera? What would you say to empower that person from the wrong side of the tracks, if we want to say it that way?
I think I would say, don't let it change you. You change it. So if your family has a specific name within the community, don't allow that name to change you and make you be what that family name says that you have to be. You change it. You change the narrative of that family name. So if that family name is attached to poverty, then wealth needs to come from you. If that family name is attached to failure, then success needs to come from you. You have the responsibility to change the narrative. So when people hear but no, you remember so and so, they're doing great. You change the dynamic of how people see you and how people see your town. Even when they say, well, you just from Palaca. And as it was say, could any good thing come out? When we read the script, yes. Well, what me? I'm the good thing. I'm the great thing. I'm what came out. I was birthed out of Palaca. Palaca had a lot to do with this small town had a lot to do with my success. If it had not been for Palaca, Florida, I don't know if I would be where I am today. There were a lot of people who influenced my life in a mighty way. That's where it started. Palaca was my training ground. And a lot of people are like, well, I get out. I'm never going back. And I'm never going. No, that was That's why I am who I am. You can either let the narrative make you better, or you can let the narrative make you better. You may have had some bad experiences and had and dealt with some tough situations, but that's because of those things. That's why you're where you are now, and that's why you who you are now, because of what you experienced. Because here's the blessed of, you went through it.
Okay.
If you didn't go through it, you wouldn't be here. You went
Mm-hmm.
through it. And one of my favorite things to say, I don't know if I read this quote somewhere, but I just feel like it just came to me because I've been saying this for years. Going through is always better than being stuck.
Okay.
So a lot, so even so, that's what I say. You came out, which means you made it. You're here. So there was something that where you're from, your background, your history, whether it's family, whether it's the town, it produced you. It produced you. So you got to be great. You got to be great. You go out and be great. You go out and let the world see what it looks like to serve. For those of us who are believers, let the world see what it looks like to save to serve a risen Savior.
Wow.
Let the world see. Let the world see the good success come to fruition that He promised you.
It reminds me, I had a coach in Little League, like basketball, like YMCA or whatever. When jersey numbers came out, and some kids said they wanted a certain jersey number, like of whoever the cool player was at the time, and he would say, "You shouldn't want Dr. J or whoever. You shouldn't want, or like for our time, you shouldn't want 23 because Jordan and LeBron have it. You should pick what you feel like is the ugliest number, like 76 or whatever. You 11, I don't know about 11, but you should pick a number that people feel is the ugly number and take it as a personal challenge. You're going to make it the cool number
You make it
because you're
great.
going to change the story." And we were like kids, and I remember that to this day.
You make it. Remember Dennis Rodman had that 91. 91.
Exactly.
But I remember. He won that. I remember he won 91.
Wow, there you go. That's the perfect example. Oh, I get that. You're rewriting the script. You're changing the narrative.
You're changing the
Uh,
narrative.
from our time working together we worked at a local high school here, and I noticed, but many people noticed that you had a not not just a rapport, but a great rapport with a very diverse range of people, from co-workers whose backgrounds could have been similar or very different from yours, to every kind of student, and by kind I mean financially, racially, or whatever label you want to put on people. And you were just able to navigate, and not just navigate and survive, but thrive and have people who are excited when you walk down the hall of every kind of background. Can you talk to us about how you do that? How does a person become comfortable in all kind of situations, cultures, all kind of people? Because I have seen in my work with young people, sometimes they feel they must limit themselves to just people who are just like them, and they feel afraid to approach people that are different, and that limits their opportunities. So how do you become a person that can navigate every type of circle? What would you say about that for the young person or for the adult?
I, I think the biggest thing is don't try to change people. Let you being you change people. I hope that makes sense. It makes so much sense to me. I hope it makes sense because what we try and do is when somebody doesn't fit in our bubble, act the way or look the way that we think they should do, when students don't conduct themselves the way we think they should, we try and immediately change them. This is how you're going to be around me. This is how you're going to do. But I started out when I started teaching school, and I try and keep this saying, yes, sir. When I speak to my students, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, Miss So and so, can you please? Because one of the things that I would hear is, students were quick to say that, well, our teachers don't respect us. Okay, so I'm going to respect you first. I'm gonna respect you first. So now when you disrespect, you shouldn't disrespect me if I'm respecting you first. Even in my working relationship, I try and deal with them in the utmost respect. I try to be as respectful as I can be because this is my thing, and this may sound crazy to some people, but it's not your job to win me over. It's my job to win you over.
Hmm.
And the way that I do that is show you my honesty. I show you my respect, my accountability, my responsibility, my dedication, my commitment. I show you who I am. And when you get a chance to see who I am, you say, man, you know what? That Dr. King, he a cool dude, Coach King, you know, and that's how students, I see students now, they say, I respect you because you always told us the truth. It was, you know, y'all want to talk, let's talk about it. Let's have this. And kept it within the grounds of, you know, there's certain things you can't say and you can't, you know, when you're in that public school setting. But I always made sure that I told them the truth about who they were. I always told them the truth about what they could achieve. I refused to allow them to say what they couldn't do and what they couldn't accomplish. You might not be able to do it like Susie Q sitting over here, but you can do it. And so I refused to allow them to make excuses. I would always tell them, you're not doing that, not here. Not, you won't make an excuse here. You won't give yourself an excuse to fail here. If you're going to fail, you won't fail because Dr. King let you fail, not Coach King or Mr. King let you fail. You know, so given I said, I'm going to be my most authentic self. So not so I can make them change, but them being around me causes them to change, if that makes sense.
Got that.
Uh,
Well, and when piggyback, it's our last question here. It's kind of the opposite. When we worked together at that high school, very uh, diverse backgrounds and things. But you yourself attended though HBCU, right,
mhm,
Bethune-Cookman University, which for those who don't know the term, that's an historically Black college and university, and you work there currently now.
mhm.
Can you talk about, well, because a lot of people, I'm from Daytona Beach where there is an HBCU, and so I'm familiar with that. But for those people who aren't familiar with historically Black colleges and universities, can you talk to us about the benefits that you reaped or continue to reap or that you recognize for a student being in or attending an HBCU?
At this, I believe at this one school that we worked at together, it was the School of Opportunity. And when I look at HBCUs, they're schools of opportunity. So many people that I went to school with were first generation college students. So many of them. What's surprising is so many of them coming even today still are first generation college students.
Wow.
You know, so and I'm sitting here and I'm like, what is your and it's exciting. You know, some people are like, that no, but it's exciting because you know I get a chance to empower them. I get a chance to impact them. I get a chance to mentor them as it pertains, you know, because they'll carry that weight of I'm the first. I can't fail. I can't mess up. I'm the first. But it's a school of opportunity because for so many of our students who come in and have excellent SAT scores and excellent GPAs, some of the schools that they may have tried to get into, they couldn't get into. And you're sitting here like, huh? But the HBCU, it offers them that opportunity that sometimes other schools don't offer them. And I look at it as a place of opportunity. It's a place for you to see because the truth is for many of our students, a lot of times in the classroom, because with the teacher profession, the way that it's going now, you got a lot of people walking away from the classroom. And the way that it's going, a lot of times our students don't get a chance to see someone that looks like them in the classroom and having a positive impact. But you know, when you come to an HBCU, a lot of times that's what you see. You see a lot of people that look like you, doing great things, doing big things, and those are the people sowing into you and empowering you. And I'm not saying you can't get that from nowhere else because you can. You can get it from any college if you flip, but it's just good when you can see somebody that looks like you operating in so many facets and areas of an educational institution where we know how important education is. I think it's a beautiful thing for a young man, a young woman to walk in a classroom and see me. They see me. They see me being the mathematician. They see me being the scientist. They see me being the engineer. You know what I'm saying? They see me being over the business. You get a chance to see me. So it's a beautiful thing.
I've got that. Well, Dr. King, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you will? I mean, I could go another 7 hours, but I gotta eat. Um,
Yeah.
is there and again, I keep riding this multi-hyphenate train that you have experiences in so many different departments. There's so many things I could ask you about. Is there anything else that you would like to leave us with that I haven't gotten to that you would like to say to us?
Well, that's probably the toughest question that you've given me this whole time, because there is, I'll say this as you add that. My coach told me one of the most valuable assets on the team is the athlete, and I was just like, why the athlete? What does that mean? He said, because the athlete can do everything. It's like, huh? But if the athlete can do everything, um, doesn't that mean he won't be like good and wonderful? Not when you're an athlete. He said, when you're an athlete, no matter where they put you at, you're an excel. You're an excel. And I began to think about that. I started reflecting whether in high school, college, little league, some of the players who we have on our team that were just straight athletes. You could put them on the offensive side of the ball, they would show out. You put them on the defensive side, no matter where you put them, they excel. So I'm saying that to say I encourage each and every person who hears this, go out and be that athlete. Don't be afraid to do that training. Don't be afraid to take that test. Don't be afraid to go back to school. Don't be afraid to put in for that promotion. Don't be afraid. Hey, don't be afraid to establish a right relationship with God. Don't don't be afraid to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. There's so much out there. Be that athlete. Walk into the talent. Walk into the gifting. Walk into the potential. Walk into the purpose that this life has to offer you. Because if you stop, you will never experience it. And what happens is so many times we hit a roadblock and we think that roadblock means stop. In essence, that roadblock means detour. Sometimes you do. Many of us, we've had to go the long way around, but we can test it. We made it there. So as long as you make it there, you know what I'm saying? As long as you get to that destination, as long as you arrive at the appointed time, you're all right. So don't be that athlete. Be that athlete. Whatever we would all say, whatever your hands find to do it. There's so much in you. Do it because somebody's dependent on you. Somebody's counting on you. And I'll say this and I'll leave, and to some it may sound strange, but I hold it to be true. You're not living this life just for you. There's always somebody watching you. And how you live this life is going to depend on how they live theirs. And if you don't live your life to the fullest potential, they won't live theirs to the fullest potential either, because they're watching you in silence. And what you don't know is if you choose to stay silent about what it is that your responsibility, what you've been called to do, they'll suffer in silence because they're watching you. And they're trying to, you won't move, they won't move. You don't excel, they won't excel. So remember, this life is bigger than you. It's bigger than you. Somebody's dependent on you.
That is a perfect place to leave it. I love the athlete analogy, how it spreads to so many other different things.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. King, I appreciate your time very much today. We go way back, and
Yeah.
but just because, sometimes when you know people and you're friends or whatever, you don't value them, kind of like the whole prophet without honor
Mm-hmm.
type thing. But I
Uh-huh.
appreciate the gifts that you are, and all the hyphens and all of that, and just being still, I'm gonna ride that train for a while. And with all the hyphens, still being a down to earth, real person. And I appreciate it.
Hey, same here. I appreciate you. You always, I would tell anybody, you are a good friend to have. You're a good friend to have. You always making me reminding me of what I need to do.
Yeah. Well, you do the
Which is
same whether
so
you realize it or
important.
not.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's what iron sharpens iron.
Got that.
Iron sharpens iron.
All right,
So
Dr. King, you have a great day.
you do. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I greatly appreciate it.
Got it.